It's not a perfect model by any means to have a business under your roof, but it's possible now. And I would argue the benefits and the challenge of navigating that end up with a far better odds of having a strong marriage, a strong home, a strong family household dynamic.
The world wants us to fail. It's not set up to make this easy. Trust us, we're on the other side. The fight's well worth it. Society can take their boundaries and stuff them. My boundaries are vastly different for my kids and my family, and I'm really proud of that. And entrepreneurship gave us the opportunity to have that in place.
Hey, welcome everybody to the Side by Side Business Podcast. And we are super excited about this episode because we have some of our heroes on here with us, Jim and Andrea Cockrum. Thank you so much for being on with us today.
Good to see you guys as always.
Hello.
Hey, we are so thrilled to have you guys on here. I have mentioned it in other areas, but not on this podcast, about how we began to follow you, Jim, a long time ago, very early in our entrepreneurial journey. And you have really been someone who has greatly influenced our own entrepreneurial journey. So this is kind of I'm going to try not to fangirl too bad, but this is kind of a big moment for us. And then, of course, as we've gotten to know you and Andrea both through the course of attending conferences and things together, you guys have been such a blessing to us. It was through your leadership and teaching that we were able to actually bring Larry home and become full-time entrepreneurs. So
over 12 years ago now.
Yeah.
And just a couple of things here, Jim and Andrea. I don't know if you realize this, but Sue and I have been to 11 out of the 13 conferences.
Yes.
That you hold. And so 11 consecutive. So outside of your family, I don't know if anybody else has got that deep. And then the other thing is, Jim, I know on your podcast, you've got over 1,000 episodes now. I think we've been on there 6 times. And I look back, the first one that we were on with you was episode number 62.
Wow.
Back in 2017.
That's almost 1,000 episodes ago now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we go way back. And so again, welcome. And we want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself to the audience as well. So just tell us a little bit about yourself.
I want you to go first.
So, Andrea, I'm Andrea. We've been married for 31 years, dated since 94. So we dated for about a year and a half before he finally asked me to marry him, and then 2 years before the wedding. So altogether, we've been together about 33-ish years. I think our journey is really similar to many other working entrepreneurs. There's been highs, there's been lows, but I don't think I view myself as constrained or defined by my marriage to Jim, but rather just a place for me to grow and excel inside a safe area that's called marriage. Beat that.
Just like some data, some like pure data. We've got 5 kids. 3 of them.
Right. I forgot about
3 of them are married with 3 grandkids, 2 of which are at our house right now, sleeping.
If they wake up, we're out.
Which is why
I'm out.
she's gone. We hear a little yell from the other room. Yeah, we're just in a real blessed season of life. This has been our reality for 2 decades. And working with you guys has been a privilege and an honor. And we still continue to work in several ways. But you guys were great leaders in our community. And Sue, you've been a great MC for several of our conferences. So, our paths have intertwined in many ways. But I think, I was talking with our coaching director, Nate, and this is still part of the bio from my vantage point, but the whole family aspect of what we do as a community, teaching people how to come home under the same roof, do life as they're doing business. There's a unique set of challenges there, but I'll take those challenges any day over mom and dad wake up super early, go their separate ways, come home tired, 6, 7 o'clock at night, hardly know each other, let alone their kids. Like, I'll take the challenges of this lifestyle any day over that. And I think what we've done over the last 20 years is we've made that reality possible for many people that otherwise might not have had it. So I think I'm as proud of that we've done with you guys. And Andrea's been a huge part of that as well, because she's like at our conferences, she's the one who speaks to the kind of the non-entrepreneur spouse and really makes that reality kind of come to life for them about what it's like, because that's been her reality for 2 decades plus.
I'm not an entrepreneur.
She doesn't consider herself, but she's got way better instincts than she credits herself for, because I rely on her for a lot of the big decisions, especially when it comes to people. Maybe we can get more into that, but that's a bit of who we are, the stage of life we're at.
Well, and honestly, those conferences wouldn't happen if it wasn't because of Andrea, right?
100%.
It's totally my fault.
Yes.
I take all the blame.
Your credit.
Yes, absolutely. And, we talk to people who are in all the different stages, whether couples are like Larry and I, where they both work the business basically full time, or couples more like you, where one is really kind of the entrepreneur and the other one is really kind of the cheerleader and support staff when needed. And so I would love to hear a little bit about the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey, Jim, and how you came to a place where you became that entrepreneur and stepped into that.
Oh, you've always been an entrepreneur, though. I mean,
yeah. I kind of grew up. I mean, my earliest recollection, I'm not going to go through my whole childhood history here. No one needs that. But I knew I kind of had this thing inside of me. 2 different quick stories. One is I had a yard sale of all my toys in our front yard. We lived out in the country on 50 acres. We had 4 cars drive past our house on an average day. But I set up a yard sale and I put a price tag on every toy I owned to put it in the front yard. No one even drove past the house that day. But I was so proud of myself. Like I was like 5 or 6 years old, right? And the other thing I remember as a kid, it was just having this sense of sadness when I would see a business closing, and I would very easily relate to the people, and I would envision the money and the time and the energy. And I was like, is their family okay? Like, did that cause problems? All the people they had to fire? Like, I've always related to entrepreneurs. So when I got myself into a career and I was making decent money, I always had this longing to be home, to have my own business. And when the opportunity presented itself, I jumped on it. That's been, like I said, a couple decades plus ago.
And Andrea, what was that like from your perspective when Jim stepped into that full-time entrepreneurship? What was going through your mind at the time?
Well, there's a large caveat to the story that I'll condense, but he got fired from his corporate job.
Microsoft.
Because he was trying to give his notice and they didn't apparently take notices. So he was escorted off the premises by security, and he got home at 10 o'clock in the morning. I knew something was dramatically wrong because he didn't look sick. He looked thrilled.
I was excited.
I, on the other hand, was 8 months pregnant, and I was terrified. I wasn't not terrified for about 3 years.
Yeah, we kind of jumped off a cliff.
I knew he would be an entrepreneur. I mean, I knew he was headed that way. And I was in the boat for that, but it came quickly and it came fast, and it came without maybe the nest egg we had been planning on and all that. So it was a different jump in experience than what we'd planned for. But I eventually figured out how to be present and available and useful.
Yeah. Oh, there's so much behind that condensed version of that story. So I want to dig in just a little bit closer into this, because I'm sure that there were some interesting conversations. Can you kind of walk us through that process a little bit? So Jim is excited. And if you want to talk about like what business you were going into or whatever detail you went there, Andrea, you're not so excited. So how did you navigate that together as a couple and stay strong?
We probably have 2 very different versions if you like separated us and had us tell that 3-month story. It's been a 2 decade plus ago, so you got the memory factor. But never mind, we just had a completely different perspective. I had to add a little more detail to that part of the story. The day before I was let go, I had told my boss, in like not treating him as a boss, but treating him as a friend. Like, man, I'm loving this weekend thing I've got going. I'm selling on eBay, and I've got this community of people who are listening to what I say, and they're starting to succeed. It's really fun. I said I could envision that I may not still be here a year or 2 from now, and I'd give you plenty of heads up if that happened. But man, I'm really having fun with this thing. And it was kind of a friendly conversation. Well, he went and told his boss. His boss didn't like it. They fired me the next day. Right. So I felt like I was kind of on my way out, but I wanted a 9-month to year, just telling a friend, hey, this might be on the horizon. I thought we had the relationship where I could confide in him, and I didn't. So that was it a mistake in retrospect? the timing couldn't have been better because it lit a fire under us. I came home to a pregnant wife, like I said, and the pressure was on. And sometimes we respond very well as entrepreneurs to that kind of pressure. And it did. I mean, it exploded. It took off. And I was making, 3 or 4 times what I would have made had I stayed with my career within a year or so. But
Not,
that doesn't mean it was easy.
yeah.
It was, it was a very difficult time. But I remember Andrea being in full on cheerleader, I believe in you mode, where it's internally, it was a very different experience for her. To her credit, she kind of hid that from me, but she's always been my biggest cheerleader, even when I think sometimes she's had to fake it.
It wasn't necessarily like I wasn't lying to him about my enthusiasm. I was enthused long term. I was not enthused short term. The conversations that were happening between us, even since we got married, Jim was fired when Zane was 8 months.
8 months pregnant with
Zane. So
two boys already.
So we'd been married for a hot minute. Like we knew that Jim was going to be self-employed eventually. Those conversations in itself were difficult for me. I was raised with a family that owned a brick and mortar HVAC company, and it was the source of all family consternations. It was yelling at Christmas and birthdays, and it consumed our lives. And I didn't want anything like that for my little family. So there was a lot of, well, what about this? There was a lot of hypothetical situations that we walked through before Jim was getting super serious, even with selling tickets on eBay and writing Silent Sales Machine and launching that. There was a lot of conversations beforehand that went into what was that going to look like, because I had some pretty inset fears. I had a very small worldview of what owning your own business looked like from personal experience, and I just needed a broader view. And I needed to trust Jim that broader view would happen. And trust takes time. So it took me a few years to realize this isn't going to be a problem in our lives. It's going to be a source of good in our lives. So I was able to cheerlead for Jim when it all happened because I believed in the long-term outcome and of his abilities and our abilities to navigate this surprise turn together. But Jim was way more excited short term than I was. I was tired and I had all these kids and I was figuring out homeschooling. It was a really kind of a dichotomy for the two of us, those first year to 3 years of his being an entrepreneur. We led weird lives, and they oddly didn't overlap that much, even though we were under the roof. Mm-hmm. Under the same roof. He had his thing, I had my thing, which was an agreed upon situation. Mm-hmm. And we just trusted each other that we were giving it our all. And we got spit out the other side, okay?
That is fantastic. I love how you were able to separate that, Andrea, recognizing, mm-hmm. I know this is going to be good long term. Mm-hmm. I just don't know how this is going to shake out, in the short term. And you talked about how you're kind of leading two different lives. I assume one of the things that we talk about a lot on this podcast are boundaries and how we set those. I assume that you had to work your way into certain boundaries. Do you mind to share a little bit about how you navigated what boundaries you set and how you went about setting them, whether it's within your relationship, for the family, for the business, however you want to shake that out?
Do we include the yelling or do we not include the yelling?
I think a good example, I think it would be fun to hear you address was, speaking of yelling, when I'm in my office and I'm working, creating content or on a client meeting or whatever, and I hear a kid just scream, right? Like
this
15
was
feet
in
away.
The early years.
In the early years,
figuring out boundaries.
And we got 4 kids, and the things that happen in a normal day with kids. Sometimes they scream because they're actually needing attention, and other times they scream because someone looked at them and blinked the wrong way, right? So I would hear this, and
his office was upstairs,
right?
And me and the kids lived downstairs.
Okay.
So what did you talk about the boundary that we ended up setting up? Do you remember?
Of course, I remember.
Yeah, so it's been a while, but yeah.
Through lots of compromise, calm talking, no reactionary anger at all. But the last, like, so Jim would, given the doting father and husband, and possibly not wanting to get in trouble later when he did come downstairs, if he heard someone scream, he would rush out of the office and come downstairs thinking that he was helping. That was his intention, but he was just disruptive as a tsunami, honestly. I mean, I felt like he didn't trust my mothering abilities. I felt like I didn't need help with my kids. Like, go away. I got it. You're butting in. So finally, after some back and forth, like, go upstairs. I need to help you. No, go upstairs. I'm here to help. We work from home now. Go upstairs. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
For a bit. We finally I said, the rule is, unless I yell for you, you stay put. And he was happy with that because he just wanted a line in the sand, like a really non-subjective boundary, which this one's really good with those.
Yeah, I like clarity.
So it was for that specific boundary, it was some trial and error, and then me just laying it down, and that one worked. We've set other boundaries for the business and in our family life that haven't worked, and we've been like, well, that was pie in the sky. That's not going to happen. Sidebar, real quick. One thing I hear a lot of marriages complaining about who live in this lifestyle is that the entrepreneur's phone doesn't turn off at 5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Honestly, so what? I mean, it's part of the business.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of the beauty of our world that we live in, and that we can work from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. if need be. I don't know. I don't think one can marry an entrepreneur or live in an entrepreneurial lifestyle and think there's going to be normal office hours. That just doesn't really make sense. So that was maybe something in my mind I had to give up pretty quickly, because I was raised 9 to 5. Our HVAC business, they'd go on call after hours, but it didn't impact my family so much as, say, Jim being up working from 7 to 10 or whatnot. But I figured that that's just the lay of the land. You got to give it to the entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's very insightful. And I know with some of the couples we work with and we talk to, they try to set more strict boundaries on certain things. Like, for example, whenever they're going out for a date, it's like, we're not going to talk about the kids. We're not going to talk about business. Soon I tried that. That was one of those boundaries we tried that just didn't work. Mm-hmm. And we were like, listen, we've got each other's full attention for an hour here. Everything's on the table. Yeah. And so we just kind of said, let's just talk about the conversation flows wherever it goes. So do you do it kind of similar to that? Or do you try to have date times where, certain things are not on the table? And then the other thing that I'm kind of curious about is, Andrea, is Jim running ideas past you all the time? How do you handle that situation?
Well, what do you think we do on dates?
I think from my perspective, I've learned to protect her preferences. Yeah. Not perfectly. I'm not perfect at it, but there's a lot of things that I almost say that I don't say. I know that, because I don't want to drag her unwillingly into, just because it's a big deal in my head doesn't mean it has to be a big deal to her when it comes to business stuff. There's other things.
A specific date.
Like on a date.
On a date night.
Right. Like my instinct might be, hey, guess what happened in business today? And we've gotten to the point now where I know the parts of the business that she enjoys speaking to and being pulled into, and there's other parts where she's going to gloss over. I mean, I might as well be just talking about something that's completely not of interest to her, not because she doesn't care deeply about business. Well, this isn't because you care. It's just there's no need for us to be completely immersed in this 24/7, which is what it must feel like to her at times, right? So I've come to understand and respect that. But if it comes down to like interpersonal relationships, like, okay, I've got this lady on our team and this guy, and they have these opinions and they're kind of butting heads, like, help me navigate this. She loves that. She's better at it than I'll ever be instinctually. she can get to know people far faster than I can and kind of see that friction. So she enjoys that. But the numbers side of it and the strategy e-commerce stuff, like that's not interesting to her. And I don't expect it to be. And it doesn't have to be for this to work well. So it's not that we avoid business. It's I've out of a lot of practice, I've gotten better, far from perfect, at knowing which parts of it she is interested in and that will ignite her to talk about where she can provide value and be excited to discuss. Yeah. So it's not, we don't talk business. It's, we don't talk the parts of it that aren't in my scope to even be able to contribute to in a significant way. And, and she's happy to hear, the good news, the bad news. She enjoys that, obviously. So I don't think we have any, like, here's a line thou shalt not pass.
We've never said, don't talk about kids on the dates, on date night. Like that, let's not talk about the coolest thing in our lives.
Yeah.
That makes no sense.
The things we're excited about.
Same with, the happy business stuff. Yeah. No, we just, fundamentally, we're incredibly unorganized people. So, like, just getting out on a date is an achievement. Having rules about what we talk about, we're way too hippie for that stuff.
Yeah. We need more flexibility than that.
We need somebody to parent us on that because
I don't know.
It's never been a problem.
Do you guys see that as a good idea? I'm just curious. Like when you coach a couple, like, okay, you need to have these boundaries. You said you don't do it.
Yeah. Well, now we're being interviewed, but we normally just encourage them to come up with boundaries that they are both comfortable with. And we always encourage default to the one who wants the stricter boundaries. So if one of you wants to have really strict boundaries, for example, we do have a boundary in our working relationship that is all because of me, that I want the stricter boundary here. And
this is why I asked Andrew this question.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I think I missed some of that on that last question.
We do not talk about anything business related after 10 p.m. If he got a brilliant idea at 10:15, he needs to write it down and share it with me tomorrow, because if he does,
that's when I get my ideas.
I will be awake half the night thinking about it. So
I do get that. I didn't address that question, but in this new season of life now, I have all of these these annoying entrepreneurial sons, and they're dropping big ideas. I was just like, can we just talk about like the weather?
Yeah.
They're like, my daughter-in-laws, when they start coming into the family, they're like, is it always this intense? I'm like, yep. These guys do not talk about really like sports so much. They talk about how to scale someone else's e-commerce idea that might launch in 5 years. Like, that's what we talk about at the Cockrum household. So I get ideas pitched frequently, a lot. I've learned to recognize that it's a pitch. It's not a contract. That he's not proposing that we sign anything. He's dreaming or just talking and organizing his thoughts through verbal communication. And I just need to sit there and listen. When I was young in this journey, the dreams terrified me, or like his ideas terrified me, because they seemed big, impossible, vague, with a lot of acronyms, and they all required plenty of capital. And I'm like, my head is swimming. Are we doing this tomorrow? And, he'd be like, what? No, I am just talking. I'm like, you act like you were doing it. He's like, how? I'm just talking. I'm like, okay. So eventually I learned they're just talking. But, conversely, it does give a kind of a heavy weight to conversations. Yeah, so I'm kind of a jester in our family. I'll break up conversations if they're too e-commerce heavy or whatever. I mean, all my kids just see me do it like, okay, we're talking about something else right now. Because not all of our kids are entrepreneurs. So if, the group that are huddle in a corner and talk about important things, the rest of us are just sitting there talking about what they're talking about and why they're so interested in it. So on our big family nights, I am hyper aware that pitching ideas from all of them, including Jim, can seem fascinating, but it can also seem overwhelming. I've just learned how to navigate that better than I definitely used to. And I'm just on my toes about it.
Yeah. Good for you.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You saying that, it reminded me of a story. You talking about the kids always talking about business and such. We were on a trip one time, and we had the whole family in the van, including one of our sons had a girlfriend along. And as I'm driving, Sue is reading to me from a business book, and the girlfriend was just like, that is weird. She was like, she leaned over to actually one of our daughters and just said, your mom is reading to your dad. Is that normal? And she was just like, yeah. Like, why is that abnormal?
Just like listening to podcasts,
yeah.
like business podcasts or something in the car with the kids is normal.
Yeah.
Other guys were like, put on the music. And Jim's like, nope, Rabbi Lappin's podcast is coming on right now. We're listening to it. I'm like, okay.
Yes.
That is fantastic. I love it. Well, you guys obviously have got a strong business and obviously have a strong marriage and family. For our listeners who maybe are near the beginning of their entrepreneurial journey, we end up talking to a lot of people who are kind of early in their journey or thinking about embarking on it. What would be one of the biggest tips that you could give about how they can keep their marriage strong as they navigate these entrepreneurial waters?
I'll go first on this and talk specifically to the guys. And it's a lesson that I think takes all of us, whether you're entrepreneurial or not, far too long to learn. Most guys I've talked to, they learned this years after they should have. And that is the way your wife processes information and details in regards to making a decision is very different by design, intentionally so, by God. Meaning, if you're not listening to your wife because she just doesn't have all the facts yet, you're missing out, dude. You're making some bad decisions because she doesn't need all the facts. She just doesn't. Her instincts, her intuition, a good friend of mine says that's the voice of the Holy Spirit, right? It's like she needs about 10 seconds of information to get to the same decision that you'd make with hours and hours and hours of research. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be more accurate than your hours and hours of research. So listen to your wife. And specific examples would be the people who have entered our lives that I'm like, yeah, the on paper, this guy is great. Look at his pedigree. Look at his history. Look at his, resume, so to speak, right? And Andrea meets him for 10 seconds. She's like, he's trouble. And I'm like, how could you possibly? And I've learned to trust that, right? Because it's so accurate. It's more accurate than my hours of research and background and checking and investigating. And so I'm speaking to the guys now specifically, like, especially the relational stuff, the people, like, what do you think of that guy? Right? There's a reason, and I'll end it here to make my point. There's a reason Dave Ramsey's organization learned a long time ago that when you're hiring somebody, do everything you can to meet the spouse.
Yeah.
Because in Dave's words, married to crazy is crazy. Yes. So you want to meet the spouse and you want your wife there when you do, if you're a guy, so you can protect and guard what you're building. And that's just one example. Guys, listen to your wives, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if they don't have all the details.
Are you saying that took you too long to learn?
Yes. Oh, it takes every guy too long. Every guy I've ever talked to, they're like, man, I wish I had figured that out sooner.
Yeah.
We had those words written on the whiteboard on our wall for a long time. Listen to your wife, dude, that you spoke to Larry.
Yes, that's right. We
several
talked about
years
that
ago.
Yes.
Well, because you were saying, yeah, Larry, it's time to leave. We did that podcast episode and you guys, Larry's like, I just don't know if I should leave yet or not. When's the right time? I'm like, what's Sue say? Oh, she thinks I should have left a long time ago.
Yeah.
I'm like, listen to your wife, dude. Like,
yeah.
Why do you need me?
You've said that to us more than once.
That's great advice.
And we very, very much appreciate it. And I'm totally on board with and I've always attributed a lot to my personality, but I don't need all the details. I can make a decision really quick. And if I find out it was a mistake, I can make a new one tomorrow. So it doesn't bother me.
My advice for somebody in just starting out the journey, Jim and I have a saying that when it's a bad day or whatever, or we are irritated with each other or whatever the case may be, I trust you that you're doing 100%. Mm-hmm. What was it we say? Wait.
You're giving your best. I'll never doubt that you're not giving your best.
Right. We've had a major health journey with me in our marriage. And it was a lot of, down days. And we developed that reliance on each other, that I know you're doing your best. I know I'm doing my best. And I think if we had trusted each other with that acknowledgement when we were in the really beginning moments of becoming entrepreneurs full time, that would have just calmed a lot of fears on both sides, because Jim wanted to feel encouraged and he wanted to feel acknowledged, but also at the same time, like he was doing the right thing and that I trusted him. And I wanted to know that we were going to get a paycheck. I wanted to know we were going to meet the mortgage, have a Christmas. So that saying, I trust that you're doing 100% is a pretty powerful statement. Now, mind you, you have to back that up with actions, but there's power in those words being exchanged between a married couple, especially in the throes of a new challenge, like what marriage and entrepreneurship is.
Yeah, those are very wise words. We frequently talk to people about, you don't want to assign motives to people, especially your spouse, because we have a tendency to assign the worst motive whenever we get in that kind of crazy cycle. And when you think the best of them, that is just a foundational thing to start with for sure. So, well, we could go on for like hours, I think, with this conversation, but I think we should probably start winding things down a little bit. So we'll have a couple of final questions for you. But before we get to those, Jim and Andrea, I'm sure that people are going to want to reach out to you and contact you. So we'd love to give you the opportunity to share. How would people find you?
Well, if you want to be entertained and have an interesting experience, find Andrea on Facebook. Family pictures, fun stuff. She is the family cheerleader. And we have at our conferences, you guys mentioned, one of the most, if not the most popular sessions is Andrea just talking to the non-entrepreneurial spouses and just kind of making fun of this other side to a degree. But
wait, you've never attended a session. You have no idea what I say. I don't.
It's entertaining.
Sue's been in plenty of my sessions. Yeah. I acknowledge tendencies that are humorous. I do not mock E's because I think E's are very valuable.
Important distinction.
Thank you.
Andrea, though, we saw this year, Jim tried to attend this year and you kicked him out.
I popped in to take a quick little video and she's like, hey.
Not allowed. Like, people will not talk about their stuff if you're right there.
But it's very practical. I've heard others tell me some of the things they've learned in your sessions. And like when your entrepreneur is presenting you a new idea, for example, don't give them this like, huh, what, why, where? Instead, just say, wow. And then move on with your day. Like, that's practical, right? So it's always a great session. So I'm afraid I've forgotten the question.
You can PM me on Facebook, and you can also.
You okay?
You can also PM Jim, maybe.
A little bit of a jank setup here. Yeah. My website is silentjim.com, JIM, and that's where all of our business stuff kind of originates from that one website. So if you want to track me down, that's where I'm at.
Or you can just PM me on PM. I'm much more
accessible.
Yeah. You're very, very generous with your kind words and your time and everything.
Thank you.
We so much appreciate you guys. One of the things that we like to ask by way of a wrap up is we want to give you an opportunity to share anything that you may have come in here thinking we were going to ask a certain question, you wanted to cover a certain topic, and we didn't do that yet. And we want to give you an opportunity to say anything that you didn't get to say that you want to make sure that you said before we wrap up.
I feel, and I don't expect others to feel the same. I don't expect Andrea to feel the same way. We're married and we're in a great marriage. And I would argue one of the most exciting seasons of our marriage, but it doesn't mean we agree on everything. One of the core passions and drivers that I have, that I think she shares some to a degree, is our culture is built to build separating walls between married couples. Just so many different ways. I mean, I introduced the idea earlier of, get up early, go your separate ways, be your best in front of total strangers all day, come home tired and present this tired version of yourself to your family and to your spouse. That's the cultural norm. That's the foundation most people are operating under. God bless you if that's your reality. I mean, do what you got to do to feed your family. I get it. Two incomes are needed sometimes. Okay, I'm not attacking that. But we live in a time where it's now possible. It's not a perfect model by any means to have a business under your roof, but it's possible now. And I would argue the benefits and the challenge of navigating that end up with a far better odds of having a strong marriage, a strong home, a strong family household dynamic. And I would, from my vantage point, I want that for as many people as possible because I've seen both play out. 2 decades is a long time. I've seen the couples that do it the one way. And, if the guy can't earn enough for the wife to be able to stay home, then this option of being able to start a business from home, maybe as a side gig and grow it into something you do together, the dynamic, the positive benefit of that, that's something more people need, in my opinion. So it's worth pursuing the entrepreneurial journey and doing it with your spouse. Even if it doesn't mean you're doing the business together, you're doing this reality of being there for and with each other day to day. I see it as a tremendous benefit that couples need to consider. If I said that cleanly enough, I hope, because we've seen the benefits. You guys are a great example, in my opinion, of the benefit of, let's bring the business under the roof and do this thing together.
Yeah.
I think I would just encourage people who listen to your podcast and are obviously then interested in having a good marriage, improving their marriage inside entrepreneurship. The world wants us to fail. It's not set up to make this easy, but trust us. We're on the other side of raising little kids, of fighting through the, yuckiness of marriage seasons. The fight's well worth it. Society can take their boundaries and stuff them. My boundaries are vastly different for my kids and my family, and I'm really proud of that. And entrepreneurship gave us the opportunity to have that in place. And as a result, we have a healthy family, healthy marriage. It's not a secret sauce or anything, but just knowing that society is against you, against marriage and Christian entrepreneurship, just acknowledge it and know that the fight is actually bigger than you. And the actual fights you're having, or the arguments or the misconceptions, it's not really necessarily a personality faults that you guys are experiencing. It's typical conflict management, and it's also going against the grain of what society expects you to do, which is hard.
I think you just did a great job of describing how to do this side by side. We talk a lot about, facing the problem and attacking the problem together and not each other. I love the way that you just shared that, Andrea and Jim. That sounds like a perfect description of it.
Yeah. And I think that's a great place for us to wrap up here. That was some very, very valuable advice and information for anybody who's listening and watching. So, Jim and Andrea, thank you so much for your time. I know your time is limited and very valuable, and we just really appreciate you being on here with us today.
Of course, no problem.
Appreciate you guys very much. And the listeners who listen to your show, you've got some great mentors. Keep listening.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we appreciate that.
We appreciate that. And so for everybody listening and watching, we appreciate your time as well. And we just hope that you take the information that you heard here today and go build your dream business.
Side by side.
All right, take care.
See ya.